Well, welcome everyone to this month's Rare Birds Mentor Deep Dive, Navigating Entrepreneurship. My name's Tegan and I'm the Partnerships and Community Manager at Inspiring Rare Birds. Today I'm joined by Nikki Williams, CEO and founder of Mentwell, who will be sharing her amazing entrepreneurial journey from idea to launch. To begin, and in the spirit of reconciliation, Rare Birds would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. For those new to the Inspiring Rare Birds community, our mission is to support and promote diversity and inclusivity where opportunities in entrepreneurship and leadership exist equally for everyone. We are best known for our mentoring programs, but we also offer a wide range of educational masterclasses. We host online and in-person events, providing people with the opportunity to build their networks and grow with the Rare Birds community. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, please indicate your interest in the survey at the end of the session today, or you're welcome to reach out to me or anyone in the Rare Birds team. We'd be happy to have a chat. If you look to the right of your screen, you'll see a chat box. Feel free to use that to introduce yourself, make comments or connect with others. There's also a Q&A tab there, and we encourage you to add your questions as the session progresses, and we will have time at the end to answer them. Now I'd like to introduce Nikki, who is a repeat entrepreneur, marketer and mental wellness advocate, and has recently launched Mentwell, a digital gift card for health and wellness services. Nikki has an amazing personal and professional story, which spans the music and hospitality industries, digital marketing, kids yoga mats, and today Mentwell, with a mission to make wellness the 3.0 of gifting. In just 22 weeks after launching Mentwell, they have raised 5.8 million in sales revenues secured for 2024 and are raising 1.5 million through a crowdfunding campaign. Nikki dreams of helping to increase the global health and wellness of our communities, in particular those who are less fortunate and disadvantaged. Welcome, Nikki. We're excited to hear from you.
Oh gosh, what a warm welcome. Thank you so much, Tegan. And I'm certainly very excited to be here, given I've been a mentor for Rare Birds, and now it kind of comes full circle that I get to share the news with the cohort.
Amazing. Well, I'll leave it over to you then.
Beautiful. All right. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name's Nikki Williams, and as you heard in the intro, I'm a multi-time founder and entrepreneur. And I've had quite a colourful background, I think, both in terms of my lifestyle choices and where I've been in life in general, and how I've made choices in terms of business and what I want to do in terms of a purpose in life. And my main focus today, or my main aim, I guess, is to inspire you a little, hopefully, to show you how I've been able to reflect on my whole life and my circumstances to get to this point with Mentwell, because everything that I've been through has led up to the creation of Mentwell. So that's really my main focus, and to get you reflecting on your own lives too. And as a result, first I'm going to take you through some key parts of my life and key, I guess, dates and times, that sort of thing. So I'll run you through. I was born in 91, so I'm 32 years old. I was told when I was 4 that I had meningitis. Now, all I had was a sore neck, for context, but I went to the hospital, and my earliest memory and my earliest medical memory was being quite literally pinned down to a hospital bed by security guards to have a spinal tap and a blood test. Okay. For anyone, that is an unpleasant situation to be in, let alone as a 4-year-old. And I didn't have any support there at the time from mum or dad, because they were both working, or from my babysitter, because she had to look after her own kids at this particular point. And what I didn't know at that time was that it was nothing too sinister. It was literally a knot in my neck. But also that I was about to develop a very, very detrimental and strongly held medical phobia as a result of this one circumstance. And so anyway, I went through my life quite independently. My family unit was not a tight one. And so I had to find my way through schooling and through my personal life just to honestly survive a lot of the time. But then things got a little bit more exciting once I got into uni and I studied music industry. And in my final year, I went to New York. I worked with Snoop Dogg as one of my big claim to fames. And I was his private PR chick for a day when he very famously changed his name to Snoop Lion. I don't know what he was thinking, quite frankly, but here we are. I definitely ran amok for the next sort of 10 odd years. There was a lot of alcohol and drugs, I hate to say, involved in my lifestyle. And I was working constantly. I loved work. I was obsessed with work. So I started other businesses, such as the kids' yoga mat business that I mentioned called Little Yoga Project, and also worked in hospitality as well as a manager and an events manager as well. And then I was also doing wedding photography as well. Then I also started Milk Bottle Projects, a PR and digital marketing agency. And the core thing that I want you to know here is that in my early 20s, I actually had 2 years where I was completely socially isolated. And I won't go into details about why that was in this call because it's quite a huge story. But there were 2 years where I barely could reach out to anyone in my social network. And building MVP, the agency, was a coping mechanism for me. It was a way to keep my brain active, a way to keep myself creatively thinking as well, and a way to give back to a community, as in hospitality industry, that had done so much for me up until that point in terms of providing opportunity. And so, getting out of that traumatic period, we enter sort of COVID period, and I started therapy during this time because I had also started doing a lot of yoga and I started reflecting on my life. And I was like, why are drugs and alcohol a part of my life? Why do I keep on going into these relationships that really are doing more harm than good? What's going on? And this is the same time where consequently the idea for Mentwell sparked. And the beautiful thing about Mentwell, I think, and where it started was that not only was it my own personal experiences of going through trauma and wishing that I had help both financially and in terms of community, but I also had people around me too who were having a really hard time paying for psychology services in particular, and just a hard mental health time during COVID, as I'm sure a lot of you guys may have experienced as well. And so I asked myself the question, how do I help someone else pay for a therapy appointment? And I went onto Google and I searched high and low. Honestly, I went to all corners of the web and nowhere globally could help me safely, securely, and with sensitivity help someone else pay for a therapy appointment. And so I started researching. I used a platform called Askable to ask 400 people in a few different demographics what they thought of this idea of Mentwell. And the number one thing that we got back in the research results in an open text area was, why doesn't this already exist? And so after COVID, I went away and traveled for a year, but I started building Mentwell while I was on the road. And surely enough, around about a year and a half later, we did soft launches, and now a full product is available at mentwell.com.au. So hopefully you can see my life has been through ups and downs, and I can safely say now that my life is completely different to what it was in my 20s. I am up at 4:40 every morning doing yoga. I am in bed by 8:45 every day. I eat a vegetarian diet. I still love yoga and have done a daily practice for a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. And it's only because of service providers, health and wellness service providers, that have allowed me to get to this point. And I'll share a bit more about that later. Here's a few photos of me on the road so you get an idea of what I was doing. I reconnected with a lot of family who I hadn't seen in over 10 years in Queensland. I went on a lot of walks. My gosh, I walked a lot during that year. I hired a van and I learned how to surf as well. And I made a note to try and see as many sunrises and sunsets as I possibly could all throughout the world. And just by making these conscious choices, the rest of my vices seem to fall away. And there's something kind of interesting in that as a concept in itself. A few more photos for you. I went to Bali. I saw Adele play in Hyde Park in London. I fell in love with the Greek islands and with Turkey as well. And I made some incredible connections with amazing people such as Antonella, who's one of my best friends, featured there. Art also came back into my life as well, including watercolors. And I moved up to the Northern Rivers from Melbourne and met a group of women who have really, really supported me through my journey. And I also did my yoga teacher training as well. So I can teach yoga these days if, I guess, Mentwell ever slows down. And the reason why I've got this graphic here too is because one of the main things that I became fascinated about in this time away was the state that I am in at any point, what emotion I'm feeling, where I can feel it in my body, and what I need to do to come back to an equilibrium point. And feel free to ask questions if any of that doesn't make complete sense. But that was one of the main things that I focused and honed into during that year. And so, just to cover off what life looked like before and after that big trip, that is, drugs and alcohol were a part of my life. I was partying multiple days in a row. I was overworking. I was pretty good at avoiding burnout just by drinking more or less. I was spending excessively. As you can see, it just wasn't a great way to live. And now, here's a few things that I have in my life that I guess have replaced those old habits. Now I do a lot of breath work as well and meditation. I love ice baths, and obviously I'm focusing on Mentwell too. I would love for everyone on this call to perhaps use the fundamentals of how I got from point A to point B in your own lives as well. So write these down if you can. Think about the 5 pillars of life, and there's a number of different resources that share this differently, but these are my versions. 1, what does health and wellness look like in your life? How are you satisfying your health and wellness? And maybe rate it out of 5. 1 being very unhappy about health and wellness, 5 being really, really happy about wellness. Okay. B, what is spirituality to you? Does it exist? And how? Does it need to exist? And again, rate it maybe 0 to 5. Community as well. Who do you have around you? And what does community look like? Where do you find it? Is it through a sports club, for example? Is it through yoga? Is it through an educational program? If you don't have it, how can you find it? And again, rate what it is currently, 0 to 5. Relationships, family, for example. Maybe you're in a relationship yourself, and maybe your closest friends too. And then the last one's my favorite, purpose. Do you have it? Do you want to find it? Do you have some ideas of how to find it? I'd also recommend read a lot, write a lot as well about how you're feeling, what life has been like for you, and perhaps what your goals are as a whole. And if you want a cheat way as well to kind of get to a next goal in your life or set yourself up for success, I couldn't recommend doing yoga teacher training enough. Whether you're into yoga or not, the system that they take you through in terms of a little bit of discipline, a whole lot of self-awareness practice, and the availability to be a part of a community, that combination can be truly life-changing for a lot of people. So maybe an idea there. Another one I'm really interested in is blue zones. So some of you may have seen a documentary on Netflix about blue zones. Long story short, there are 5 areas in the world where people tend to live over the age of 100 most frequently. And there are some key elements about why they do this. And that's things like growing food on their own property and eating food from the land. It's how much exercise they get. For example, a lot of these 5 places have stairs in their communities. Therefore, they're always naturally active without even really trying or trying to fit in exercise. So maybe do a deep dive into blue zones too, if you're looking for a bit of a shake up in your life. I'll keep moving forward, guys. And so, coming full circle yet again, now I am running a business called Mentwell. So we are a health and wellness gift card for mental health and wellness services, where when you receive a card, you can choose how you redeem at any service provider Australia-wide. And this is what that looks like from a pragmatic perspective. So you might need to go to the GP. You might see a psych, for example, and just want a bit of extra help paying for that psychology appointment. you might want to try something alternative for the first time. And personally, this is where I've seen a lot of change in my life. Reiki and kinesiology are not nearly as scary or as woo-woo as they sound. So I encourage you to test and trial these different modalities. Then the maintenance side of things. Do you swim, for example? Do you go to the gym? Do you do yoga? What are you interested in terms of maintaining a clear body at all times? How do you do that currently? And is there something new that you could try? That's some of the thinking behind Mentwell. And my personal aim is to get people testing and trialing to reach optimum health and wellness globally. As mentioned, some of our key, I guess, achievements that we've had so far. 376 cards have already been sold. Some of these numbers have increased, by the way, since I did this, but nonetheless, we've processed $65,000 worth of revenue so far in 22 weeks, but we have 5.8 million already in sales revenue for this year alone. 3 businesses are already using our cards in a repeated way, and we don't have any marketing budget at the moment. This is all word of mouth. A few examples of businesses that we're speaking to currently and are looking to use our services too. So I think Mentwell is not only a better way to gift to one another for Christmas, for birthdays, or when someone is in need, but it's actually the missing link to potentially solving the mental health crisis for consumers, for businesses, and for charities and organizations through proactive mental health intervention that anyone can access anytime. It's a massive statement, but I honestly believe that if you don't dream big, then you can't make big dreams happen. And I really do think that mental health is the number one issue that we have as a society at the moment, and therefore it's the challenge that I want to make a difference in. I wanted to show you some photos of how, I guess, Mentwell started. So you can see it was just a bunch of people sitting around with a whiteboard and a marker. That was all it was. We more or less did what I call is a brain dump of all of our ideas to do with Mentwell. I already had a pretty clear idea, but Anton, who's shown there, he's our CTO or Chief Technical Officer, and he made it come to life in terms of the resources that he would need to make the dream happen, and how it all interconnected as well. You can see what the product looks like there too. It's very, very simple. It just sits in your digital wallet for use whenever you're ready. And in the top left, you can see a few of the other people, from advisors, for example, to some of my friends like Frances, who have just helped out along the way. And what I want to get across here is that when you're going through a funding process, there is so much about the process that is about vanity, and it is about making yourself look as if you are a much bigger entity than what you actually are. Okay. Very few people will tell you that, I think, but it is just the truth. You need to still make sure that you can validate the information that you're putting out there. But at the end of the day, I'm primarily working with 2 other people on a day-to-day basis. Thank you for the balloons. And in reality, a lot of people have helped my journey along the way, but they are not part of the core team. But if you saw that page, you would think that we were a huge business by this point. So I just wanted that as a thinking point for you. To get into the nitty gritty, it might be useful for you to know that what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is reaching out to HR managers, CEOs, and the startup community. I am talking to my social media audiences. I'm speaking to VCs, investors, angel groups, other founders, especially in health tech. And I'm applying for so many opportunities on a day-to-day basis, whether it's to pitch to an audience, whether it's to get funding, whether it's for resources that we might need. I'm constantly filling problems is more or less how I would put what I do on a day-to-day basis. Some of the platforms that I use regularly are Trello, Klaviyo, Later, Adobe, HubSpot, BeFree, Figma, Loom, Google Suite, and Canva. And there's a little rundown there of some key parts, or key wins, I guess, that I've had to do with Mentwell, including winning a Pride Pitch competition in Sydney. We've also already received funds as loans in order to do this virtual campaign in May. And yeah, I'll leave you to read a few of the other parts there. What I'd like to mention as the big milestone that we have coming up though is that virtual campaign. If you haven't come across Virtual before, definitely check them out. It is a great way to raise funds. Not every business is allowed to use their platform, but more or less you put together a profile and a campaign to allow small time or medium sized investors to invest in your business early. And that means that you're making the most of multiple people being involved rather than trying to find one investor that has a big check that will help you move your business along. And given the the economic climate at the moment, it seems like a more tangible way to raise funds for Mentwell specifically. And so if you want to check out our product, you've got a QR code there, and there's a little photo of some of the core members of the Mentwell team. If you have any questions about Mentwell in particular, how it works or anything, feel free to contact me too. My details are down in the bottom right. And now I think we can do a quick Q&A.
Thanks, Nikki. That was amazing. Hearing your personal story and how you got to the idea of Mentwell, and then also how Mentwell actually kicked off. I mean, the startup space and the entrepreneurial space is such a difficult place to navigate. So what were the initial challenges you faced when introducing the concept of Mentwell, particularly to healthcare professionals, charities and non-for-profit organizations, which you needed on board to make it the success it is?
Good question. Yeah. When you're introducing a product that has never existed before, it can be quite challenging as a whole because you're relying on the fact that people can kind of visualize the idea or visualize themselves using the idea or trying to see how it fits for them. So a lot of it is prompting people and knowing what their needs are. So from a consumer perspective, it was showing them images, obviously, of what the product looks like, what the branding looks like, and also posing case studies around the use of it. So telling people, I really want to help a friend pay for a psychology appointment, but there's no way to do this at the moment. So this product will allow you to do this. And as soon as you can do that, you literally see the light bulb moments coming on. In addition, for businesses, I had to do a lot of research there because also I've never worked a day in corporate in my life. So I had to find out about EAP services or employment assistance programs and how they operate, and also dig up the dark statistics that less than 5% uptake is the general consensus for EAP systems Australia-wide. And by doing so, it allowed me to state a really great argument for why our product is superior to their current needs or current uses, sorry.
Yeah. So it's really just, I guess, finding where their interests lied and kind of shaping your story to get to that light bulb moment for them.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Find the gap for that person and show them how your product fits their goals.
Yeah. And do you think that is an experience or a challenge that spans across all industries for entrepreneurs?
Good question. I think it should be a key problem, to be honest, because if you have a product, let's say that you are a coach of some kind, you need to figure out what your key point of difference is first and foremost, and then who has that problem that your product solves, if that makes sense. So it should be a problem and it should be something that you're thinking about, no matter what service or product that you're working with. Yes.
Yeah. And so I guess along that line of thinking, what you present to, one person may not necessarily be the same thing that you present to another. So with that thought, you need to stay on top of changing your presentation and your way of thinking towards potential clients or investors or whoever you're talking to.
Absolutely. Especially with this product, I can't tell you how many different pitches I have. So I'll give you an example. If I took you through my personal journey with an investor who's 50 to 70 years old and, a little bit black and white in thinking, no way would I be able to get him on board, not by any means. But if I know a bit about him in terms of family is a really important thing for him. Well, I can pull on that as a lever in terms of my storytelling. Yeah. If I know that making a really, honestly, crass joke might make him laugh, then maybe I can work the story that way. So it's about being quite in tune with who you're speaking to and sometimes making some assumptions about the kind of character that they are or the kind of business that they are in order to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, Mentwell's story is so closely intertwined with your personal story. Do you feel that, and I understand that you're pulling a lot from your personal story when selling Mentwell, do you feel that that is also something that a lot of entrepreneurs could be doing to help get their products across the line?
Definitely. Yeah, without a doubt. And I hope that first slide that I showed you is maybe something to think about for yourselves. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because if you can't sell that story, then it's going to be much more difficult now and down the line to actually get to where you want to get to. So that's where purpose comes from. You know, learn from life experience and then build something or create something that's going to help people moving forward because of what you've been through.
Yeah, great. And so there was a lot of, I guess, you did a lot of research and validation before you got to that point of talking to people about the product. So how did you actually validate the concept, and what were the key findings or the feedback that shaped the final product for any user of Mentwell?
Great question. I mentioned Askable earlier on, and for anyone that does need to validate a business, I would highly recommend to use them. It's not too expensive and they do a really, really great job. So it's more or less a survey or questionnaire or research platform, and their account managers will help you through what kind of research you need to do and target the right kind of consumers or businesses or HR people, whatever it might be, in order to validate your idea. So Askable is a great one. If you don't have the funds to use something like Askable, perhaps use Google Forms and then try and source the right people yourself. And you need to be really confident in asking people straight off the bat. When I didn't have a product yet, I don't think I had a conversation with anyone for a year and a half without mentioning Mentwell. It has to become your life purpose. It has to become the core part about what you talk about on a day-to-day basis, and pay attention to the way that they respond. Are they interested? Are they the right kind of customer for you as well, if they're maybe lesser interested? And once you start seeing a tendency towards positivity in the way that you deliver that idea and the idea at its core, then you know that you're really onto something.
Yeah. So it sounds like you actually did validation as something concrete through Askable, but you also were doing validation just on a day-to-day, that you kind of just naturally, organically gathered this information about who's interested, why they're interested, and kind of stored that away to develop later.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it was definitely a two-way street. And the reason for that is because investors want to see the hard numbers. They want to see the hard surveys, but I'm not going to whip out a survey when I'm having a coffee with a new acquaintance, you know? So, yeah, I needed something that was solid for people that needed that proof. But for my own conscience, I also wanted to do that research just in conversation as well. And honestly, you get a bit of a kick out of it anyway when you get a lot of positive feedback. So I've been fortunate in that respect.
Amazing. I think throughout your presentation, you mentioned your team and presenting a big team versus the actuality of a small team. So what do you think building a strong team is crucial for any venture? And maybe could you share some insights on how you assembled your team and kind of nurtured them to align with the Mentwell mission?
So I found out recently what kind of leader I am, and in a few different systems, in particular Neuropower. If any of you have heard of them or you're interested in types of leadership, do have a look at them. They're fantastic at what they do. But I found out that I'm a leader called a bard. And what a bard does is they are very good at analyzing someone's potential in terms of key traits that they have, maybe what they're really great at, and then leveraging them to become a leader in their own right. And I feel like that's a really great way to lead, so that you're creating leaders and creating people to own their place in the business. So an example would be working with my CTO. He is a really bright character, but he loves coding. He's just, once he's in, you can't talk to him, right? So as long as I walk through some of the difficulties potentially that I come up with him, we can create a solution that works for him. So if I say maybe he doesn't get back to me in the time frame that I would like him to when we're trying to solve a problem, I can incentivize him by going, cool, just take a complete day off in 2 days' time on the account that we can get this done. And that really works for him. He's like, okay, I get more free time for doing the thing that Nikki needs me to do. So it's working with that person, their needs, and the way that they operate as a whole too. How did I find my team? Honestly, a lot of them fell into my lap, to be very honest with you. Constantly ask people, and again, this comes back to having conversations with people. Always mention what you're doing in conversation with whoever you are meeting, and then also talk about your missing gaps. Talk about who you need to find or where the gaps are in your business as a whole. And I guarantee people will come to your aid and come and help.
Yeah, amazing. So with your, small but powerful team, what role have that team played in the success of the project so far?
I mean, I couldn't do it without them. It's really that simple. I sometimes reflect on my own skill set, and I'm a generalist. I can do a little bit of multiple things, but at its core, I think I'm just a people person who can visualize a big dream, and I usually know some of the steps to make it happen. So to actually build Mentwell, I couldn't do it without my CTO. I couldn't do it without my devs. In order to do all the admin around Mentwell, I couldn't do it on my own. No way. There's not enough hours in a day. So what part have they played? They have played a huge part in the speed at which we've been able to bring a product to market. They have played a huge part in spreading the word about Mentwell as well, even in their personal networks. And they've played a huge part in supporting me as well and being on the journey with me to make me continuously believe that this is a good thing to do and that we need to keep on surging forward, no matter how tired we become, no matter, what obstacle we may or may not come across. So they've been instrumental in building and bringing Mentwell to life.
Amazing. It's having that great support network that's all working towards the same goal.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So I know there is a lot of interest in the next question I'm going to ask, especially in a startup and entrepreneurial space, but fundraising and speaking with investors can be difficult. So what was your approach to securing the investors? I mean, you've had amazing success. So what were the financial options you explored to help support this growth that you've reached today?
Yeah, this is such an awesome question. First, I would recommend to get a list together of every VC in Australia. On airtree.vc, they have a list of a lot of different investors. That's a great list to start your outreach to. And thirdly, have a look for founder programs. So, for example, Blackbird VC, they have a founder program that they run quite frequently called Giants. I couldn't recommend doing that program or certainly applying for it enough. Scale investors have another program called Empowered, which is fantastic. Microsoft have one. Most VCs and most big businesses actually as well do have some kind of founder program. Start there, without a doubt. Also look for accelerators too. They can help both sometimes financially and with the resources and the structure to get to an MVP or a product that's ready for market. And then know your options as well. So in case anyone isn't aware, you have independent investors who tend to be high net worth individuals. You can find them on LinkedIn just by getting Sales Navigator and searching some of those terms: investor, maybe not high net worth individual, but investor, founder are some of the key words that I've used personally. Then you have angel investors that are usually a part of a syndicate. So that's multiple individual investors with smaller checks, say $5,000 through to $100,000, that they bulk all of their cash together to create a fund, and then they distribute to the startups that they enjoy or want to work with. There is an angel investor syndicate in every state in Australia, so definitely search for them. And then there are some smaller ones like Aussie Angels run by Dom Pym, and Byron Angels as well. So definitely look for them, apply for them as well. Then you've got VCs, as mentioned, really big funds usually want to tap into a business that is really globally minded, has the potential to make 10 times their investment, this sort of really big picture stuff, okay? And then you have family offices too, who often do have large funds. However, they're a little bit more philanthropically minded. So there's just a few ideas in terms of investor types and the research that you might need to do to reach out to them.
And when you're ready to speak to them, like, what should you have prepared? What should you say to these people?
Good question. You will definitely find out that information in founder programs, but at a bare minimum, start developing your pitch deck without a doubt. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is your solution? What is your understanding of the market that you're going into? And why does this problem need to solve? Why is your solution the best option out there? And then, build it out from there. Who's your customer base? How are you going to make money? What's your revenue model? How much funding do you need? Over what time period? These are all the questions you need to start answering within a pitch deck. And then that's a really good basis for pitching to, say, an angel group or independent investors.
Yeah, great. Yeah, some really good insights there. So I guess to finish up our chat before we move into the Q&A, what can we do? You talked a lot about, health and wellness, mental well-being. So what can we do to promote that work-life balance within ourselves, and how can Mentwell help with this?
Yeah, great question. So I took you through that human transformation slide. I can't pop it back up. Testing.
Yeah, we've got you back.
We're back. Sorry about that, guys. So beautiful. Sorry about that, everyone. So that human transformation map, I think, is a really good starting point. I might just get it up here for you to start thinking about what your health and wellness actually looks like. So what do you do in the identification category currently? Do you see a GP? Do you need to see a GP? Do you see a psychologist? Do you need a nutritionist if you think that what you're eating isn't 100%? Then move on to transformation. And this is the part that I like to think of as not woo-woo, but actually fun. It is fun finding out more about yourself. So pick one of these services that aligns with you in some way, shape, or form, and just give it a go. Test and trial, because that's how I've found the biggest change in my life, to be very honest. It's these service providers that made the most difference, if I'm being honest. And then maintenance. How frequently do you go to the gym? How frequently do you go for a walk? Do you want to try ice baths? So treat health and wellness as something that's fun, and use this sort of categorization to overlay your health and well-being efforts on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, and a monthly basis too.
Yeah, amazing. All right, I think we have some questions from those attending today. So just have a look here and see what is burning in people's brains. Okay, is there anything that you do differently now, knowing, from when you started, I guess, to where you are now? And this one's for Venusa.
Oh, Venusa, that's a huge question. Massive. Honestly, my 20s existed as they did from a health and wellness perspective for a reason. I had to learn some pretty harsh lessons to be where I am now. And I don't think that my growth as an individual would have been as huge if I hadn't gone through everything that I have been through. So would I change anything? I'm going to sit on answering this for at least a few hours, I think, but I'm going to say no. I don't think I would change anything. Not at all. Given the progress of Mentwell, I could say maybe if we had more funds earlier, then we could have got to these different milestones faster. But again, it's a learning process, and I kind of like sitting in that fact. It's a learning process, and it's the process that makes the journey fun. It's not the end result. I truly believe that. So yeah, I'm going to stick with it. No, I wouldn't change anything.
Vanessa would also like to know if there are any valuable lessons you've learned in the journey.
Yeah, in the journey, research. Absolutely. So research your VCs, research your market and the kind of product that you're putting out there. Be very aware of any competitors that you have and how you can create a key point of difference. Definitely. No matter what you're doing.
I think we lost you there for a second, but that's okay. We'll move on. Hopefully your internet is stabilizing itself. So just having a look here, and Nina would like to know, also thank you for sharing your experiences, how you started in your business and how did you get over the fear and taking risks and having the confidence to do it and, you know, approach those investors as well.
I'll be honest, I don't experience a lot of fear. It's not something that, in all honesty, it's not something that I really associate with. However, having a medical phobia did create fear in me. So it's a bit of a funny one. When it comes to speaking to people of all different types, I really don't have a lot of fear in terms of just going, have an idea, give it a go, try and find a solution for the problem that you currently have, and then see where the journey takes you, really. So I think there is a bit of an element of luck, to be honest. You know, I've asked the right questions to get the right result at any given point throughout my career and through building Mentwell. But first and foremost, just sit in the idea and speak to as many people as you can to, again, get that reception on if people like the idea and if they would use the idea. I think that is a great place to start. And then maybe don't start actually building until you've easily spoken to at least 100 people.
Yeah, so it's really just, I guess, having that confidence within yourself that you've done the research and you know that it's a viable product or service that will give you the confidence that to then move forward with it.
Yeah, definitely. But I'll take it to more of a personal development standpoint here. If you do have a fear to do something, stop and ask yourself, why? Is it a rational fear? What's the worst thing that could happen? The fact that you're told no? That's okay, because there's going to be an opportunity somewhere else, but at least give it a go.
Yeah, good advice. On that topic, Candice would like to know if you did any additional study or courses to help launch your business.
Funny question. No, I haven't. The courses that I have done have been in health more so and wellness. So I can practice massage, for example. I can do Reiki if I wish to. I can also be a health and wellness coach. But in terms of business, no, I haven't studied anything formally, which could explain my very poor Excel spreadsheet skills, I'll be honest. So I just find a way. Where there is a problem, I try and find a solution. That's really my ongoing and everyday way that I operate. I personally don't have a huge belief system in formal study, I'll be very honest, but it depends on the kind of person that you are.
And Kylie has a couple of questions here, so I'll just start with the first one. But how have you built the database of health providers who've agreed to, you know, sign up and offer their services through your card?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to let you into a little secret. So there are people that you can find online who will do something called scraping. Scraping means that they can gather a whole bunch of data from different websites. You can find these people on Upwork, on Fiverr, any of those sorts of contractor platforms. And as a result, they can get a database to you in an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, whatever it is, in a very short period of time. So that's how we're gathering our data currently. Our purpose in Mentwell is not to select certain service providers to be involved on the card. That is not what we're about. We are about including every health and wellness service provider Australia-wide so that the individual can test and trial what works for them.
Yeah. And how does that interact then with Medicare, following on from that question?
Yeah, for sure. So most service providers will allow you to use 2 cards. So you can just start with a Mentwell card and then use another debit card to get your rebate. That's simple.
Okay. Just have a look here. Emma just wanted to know, what was the website you got your feedback from? That was Askable. Is that right?
Askable. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, I know that there were a couple of questions that we had come through when people registered. So I think we've just got a couple of minutes that we can run through some of those. What was your go-to-market strategy?
Go-to-market strategy. It started with a core demographic of what we are calling as conscious gift givers, who are 28 to 36-year-old women who gift give most frequently throughout the year and to the highest value. And the cool thing that we found was that this demographic was also the same demographic that were most interested in more Eastern style health and wellness services. So more of that transform category there. So our go-to-market strategy was to try and reach out to them first and foremost. Again, we don't have a lot of marketing spend at the moment, so I've been doing that very organically, and it happens to be the market that I belong in too, which has helped for sure. But then the more that I spoke to a broader range of people who maybe didn't belong in that group, the more that I found out that there were other go-to-market strategies that would allow me to get to multiple people rather than targeting individual people from a consumer perspective. That's where I started reading into EAP systems and that they have less than 5% uptake Australia-wide. That's where I found out that charities have up to 60% of their charitable funds going on admin, more or less. Then I found out that health insurers were really interested too, because it allowed them to give their clients a Mentwell card to fill the gaps in what they did or didn't cover for their clients. So again, it was asking the right questions. Being curious is a big one. And then building out all those different options for go-to-market strategies. And then testing and trialing each one to validate that all of them or some of them do or don't work.
Yeah. And I mean, you've had a little bit of a varied career, but how did you find any challenges moving between being an employee to an employer? And when was that moment that you went, this is what I'm doing?
Yeah. Honestly, I was never too much of an employee. I did obviously that stint in hospitality and work with the record labels, but that work was quite relaxed, I would say. So I knew in those settings though that I just didn't operate very well in those environments. You know, I always had a vision for what I wanted to do, whether it was making the best cocktail, for example, or how the bar could operate better with people, you know, banging into each other, and there was never a dishy there and there's always glasses everywhere. I always found that I had that vision quite clearly, and if I couldn't implement it, I got kind of annoyed. So if I'm being honest. So at that point, I think I knew that I could do something on my own. I knew I was independent. I knew that I was a good problem solver. I knew that I was a very visual person too, very visual. And yeah, I think I just had to make the jump. And I also proved it in building the agency first as well. If I thought about it, I was wearing 15 hats a day. I was being the creative, I was being the organizer, the marketer, the salesperson, sometimes a psychologist for my staff, you know. So I learned from quite an early stage that I was able to be quite dynamic in these roles. Yeah. And that gave me enough confidence to know that I could take on something as big as Mentwell.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So I'm going to finish up our chat today with quite an apt question, being what is the biggest wellness challenge as an entrepreneur, and how can you look after yourself?
Oh, that is very fitting, isn't it? It is a constant battle, everyone. But after that year and a half away, what I can safely say is that my mornings need to remain the same in terms of doing an hour to an hour and a half of yoga and breath work, etc., because that sets me up to be sensitive enough during the day. And what I mean by sensitive is knowing what I need at any particular time to remain healthy. So I'll give you an example. Before this call, an hour and a half beforehand, I knew that I was feeling a bit anxious and that I just had extra energy. I was feeling jittery. I knew it was excitement. So I went for a walk. So it becomes this availability to, I guess, know what you need in the moment. But that is a challenge when you have 10 back-to-back meetings, and sometimes you can't act on what you need. But certainly knowing how to diffuse at the end of the day, for example, by doing a meditation or whatever it might be, would be my key advice. But it is certainly not easy, but set yourself up for success with a really, really strategic, purposeful morning for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today. It's been a great story to hear, and there have been some really interesting takeaways, if you're thinking about working in that startup or entrepreneurial space. Everyone would have seen a survey that's just popped up on the screen. We would love for you to complete that. Tell us your thoughts on today's session, and also indicate if you do want to know any more about Rarebirds. We are welcoming some new mentors into our community. So if you would like to give back and share your experiences with a mentee, please indicate there in the survey as well, and one of the Rarebirds team will reach out and have a chat. So again, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today. A really, really interesting and journey that you've been on, and we really appreciate you sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Tegan. And thanks everyone for being here. Tegan, thank you so much for facilitating so beautifully too. And if anyone has any additional questions, just reach out. I'd love to help anyone out in any way I can.
Amazing. And we will be including Nikki's contact details in our post session email. So if you do want to reach out, we'll send those details out for you as well. All right. Thanks, everyone. Lovely seeing you.